Patty, someone on the chat wants to know if they need to put on their Bluetooth speakers, if there's going to be any sound bowl or any type of healing with sound.
No, there won't be a sound bowl healing. Not today. That sounds awesome. But thank you for asking. Okay, here we go. Are you able to see my screen share? Is my screen being shared?
No, you can't see anything.
It was for 1 second, I think, and then
Okay, let's try this
there it
again.
goes.
Yes,
There you
thank
go.
you. All right,
Mhm.
let's present. Ah, where the Reiki comes in handy. Okay.
I was actually
Awesome.
giving, I was doing Hoshasana and on your distance. There you go.
Well received, well received. All right, we are here. We're getting started. So thank you again, all of you, for being here for the trauma-aware Reiki, what I feel is a new approach to healing. And I will be, in this presentation, sharing with you the reason why. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Patty Hernandez. Many know me as Patty Mariposa. I am a trauma-informed licensed clinical social worker, as well as a stress and trauma release energy worker or therapist. I'm also a Usui Reiki mentor and teacher, spiritual coach, jury dance facilitator, Akashic records reader, which I didn't put there, but just so many different things to help me understand why someone is struggling with whatever it is, especially coming from an energy perspective. So you'll learn through this that Reiki is one tool, and the more tools that we have, you're going to be able to really connect and help with that stress release and trauma. All right. So that's a little bit about me. So moving forward. Oh my gosh, no, don't go away. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'll let her in. So what you'll be walking away with today is learning why trauma aware matters. And you'll also be understanding what are the principles of trauma-informed care, how Reiki aligns with trauma healing. We're going to experience towards the end a group Reiki infused meditation. So you get to experience Reiki virtually. A lot of people are like, it can't work. Well, it's energy, and you'll get to experience that. And I'll also be sharing, those of you who want to stay on, about the February 8th Trauma Aware Reiki 1 level certification class that I'm offering. And for those of you who are licensed professionals, it is accessible for 6, yay, CEUs, which I'm probably the most excited about that. And then we'll also have time for Q&A. All right. And we move over. So I want to hear, well, I want to read more about you. And so go ahead and place in the chat your first name, where you're coming from, like what city or state or country or whatever you're coming from, what drew you to this webinar. And if you have any Reiki experience, go ahead and share that in the chat. And then later after the presentation, I'll have some downtime and then be able to read all of your comments, which I'm looking forward to. So let's begin with one of my favorite self-care practices. So I invite you to either lower your eyes, your gaze, or close your eyes, or find a spot in front of you that you can focus on. Whichever option is comfortable for you. You are welcome to place your hands in what's called the gasho or prayer position, or just two hands coming together against your chest. And we're going to take a collective full breath together. And you can say in your mind or out loud, hopefully you're all muted. Just for today, I am calm. I am present. I am kind to myself and others. I am committed to my work, both personally and professionally. And I am grateful. And just feel those words going in. Go ahead and lower your arms and open your eyes if they were closed. So these are 5 principles taught by Mikao Usui. He was the founder of Usui Reiki, the natural healing system. And as my gift to all of you, I will be sending, along with the recording, I created an ebook based on these Reiki principles, along with guided meditation. So briefly, so we lost a little bit of time figuring out the tech things, but briefly, my Reiki story. We all have a story that brings us either to what we're doing with a passion. How I came to Reiki was not because when I was a child, I had a gift or anything like that. Like, I was scared of ghosts and growing up. It's like, I think they're alive. I don't know, but I don't really want to meet with them. But how I came across Reiki was actually because of my sister. And this is her right here. My sister Yoli, unfortunately, was diagnosed with cancer in 2009. And what I most remember about after she received the diagnosis, right? What, like, we were gathered together as a family, and the doctors were saying, like, okay, you need to do all of these things. And she was like, okay. She put a port in her arm because she was going to get ready for chemotherapy. And then a few weeks later, she said, stop. No, this is not the path that I want to take. We as a family were shocked. We had no idea. At this time, I was in grad school as a social work or for social work and public health. So energy work was definitely not something that I knew. But one of the things that Yoli taught me was, or she introduced me to Louise Hay, that said, you can heal yourself. Well, what she taught me about that is that our issues are in our tissues. And what that means is that we carry a lot of our stress and trauma from the moment we are conceived or even before then. And if we don't find ways to process it, eventually our bodies will turn it into some kind of disease, which could be a mental health challenge, it could be physical health challenge, it could be emotional, whatever that is. And so she sought to understand why. Why did she get this cancer? What can she learn from it? Now, she learned a lot of different techniques. She was the one who introduced me to the chakras and to energy work, sound healing, and a lot of different things, complementary medicine. And I just really love to hear that and connect with her. Unfortunately, she did pass away, but by this time I had already learned Reiki, and I was on a different level. Even though when she did pass away, I will be honest, I was very, very angry and pushed away from Reiki because it didn't make sense to me why she left. Well, fast forward a year later, my mom, right here, was also diagnosed with a very similar cancer in her throat. So a sister had throat cancer, my mom had throat cancer. None of them were smokers. I was actually the smoker at the time. And what I remember, one thing that my sister-in-law told me that my mom said is that my mom told my sister before she passed away, if you leave, take me with you. Our words are powerful. 3 years later, my mom ended up joining my sister. So Reiki has been a source of comfort and understanding and awareness. And I hope that by the end of this webinar, you'll have a little bit more of an idea of what trauma is, how it shows up in our body, and how we can shift the trauma and pain using energy work. Nope, wrong way. Okay, so why trauma aware matters. What trauma aware does is, well, let's begin with what trauma is. A lot of people think that trauma is a huge situation, a big situation. It could be like what recently happened in Washington, D.C. That was traumatic, right? Or what's happening in the US in different ways, not to bring it up, to shift things, but trauma is actually an event, or it could be a series of events, or a set of circumstances that is experienced by a person that person absorbs as life-threatening. This event or situation or perception affects the nervous system. It then becomes, so trauma and stress are very much connected. So trauma is how we experience something. Stress is the physiological response to the trauma. Though some of you may have heard of fight or flight, and fight or flight isn't as easy as it sounds. So fight could be something verbal or physical. Flight could be the sensation of running away from the problem in order to stay safe. But there's also a couple of other options. So fight or flight are the two immediate situations. But another one is freeze, which is when you have that kind of sensation of deer in headlights. Now, each of you more than likely have one of these stress responses that's more prominent. Sometimes, depending on the situation, you might be that fighter of just like, oh no, I'm standing my ground. You are not going to take me down, whatever that is. Or you might be the person that flights like, oh, got to get out of here. It's starting to feel a little tense. Another response, or the fourth response we call, is fawn. And fawn is more related to how we respond to situations based on long-term chronic abuse. So fawn can come into that people pleasing. So let's say somebody is hurting you in some way, or you react in a traumatic situation, the fawn response might be you apologizing for whatever the person is doing to you. And it may not make logical sense, but this is something that your brain has created as a way to keep you safe. Trauma aware is helping to shift the conversation from what is wrong with you or what is wrong with this person to what has happened to you. Right? So when we can come from a place of, okay, so there's this person is yelling, instead of thinking, oh man, that person's having a bad day, or like, why are they doing that? I can't believe they're so not just aware of what's going on, to, wow, I wonder what happened to this person that they reacted in this way. And so we come then from more of a place of compassion. Trauma-informed care is increasing your knowledge about trauma and how it impacts by creating connections, being here, sharing knowledge, and of course, resources. The purpose of being trauma aware and trauma informed is that we acknowledge that trauma has happened, or that the person may have been affected by a traumatic situation, which is why they're reacting the way that they do. And then we focus more on safety, empowerment, and healing to encourage the person to feel more resilient. But most importantly, we prevent the re-traumatization, that basically the trigger from resurfacing, because your brain does not know if the trauma or the event is happening in the moment or in the past. Your brain is just like, oh, I need to protect my being, and this is what we're going to do, choosing one of those 4S. And the trauma focus is where we work to address and heal trauma explicitly. So what I mean by trauma focus is that I can call myself, or I call myself, a trauma focused therapist, because that's where I start from. I'm constantly like, what happened to you? What's going on? Whether this is a mental health client or this is a client who has come in for energy work. I'm constantly like, let's share with me a little bit of your stressor, but we're not going to go into detail, because going into detail actually re-traumatizes. Okay. Did you know that over 70% of adults have experienced some form of trauma? Now, I honestly believe this number is so much higher because there's so many situations happening, not only that we actually experience, but also secondary things that we see on the internet, things that we see on the phone, conversations that we hear about. And if we're hearing this and it's happening over and over again, then that can actually cause a trauma response, even if you didn't experience. Remember, trauma is not about what happened. It is how you experienced it, and also, most importantly, of if you received any support around it. And that will actually help to either bring you into self-regulation, calming you down, or it may heighten the problem. Trauma is a physiological wound. It can be experienced, like I mentioned earlier, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Unfortunately, trauma victims are re-traumatized in not only mental health or medical situations, but as well as holistic practices. One of the reasons that I really shifted into this trauma-informed Reiki purpose is because I was hearing from clients, Reiki clients, that would come to me and tell me horrific stories of what other Reiki practitioners did to them that re-traumatized them. And they really looked up to this practitioner and they weren't aware that they were being re-traumatized. So again, I feel like I'm on this mission to bring together my love of social work with energy healing and coming from that trauma aware and healthy perspective to ensure that we're not being re-traumatized, even myself as a practitioner. So here are some ways, and maybe you even recognize some of these issues happening to you. This is how stress shows up in your body. But stress is not the problem. It is what we keep doing to keep it active. Remember, stress is a physiological response to an event. But if we don't calm or self-regulate, these symptoms then keep going and going and going. I don't know what the statistic is, and I will look it up one day, but the majority of hospital or emergency room visits are actually due to stress-related issues than anything else. So I invite you to just even, you can take a screenshot or just kind of count, like, how many of these issues do you have just even that you experienced in a month, in a week, last year, right? People who have headaches or very tight muscles, skin irritations, or constantly falling or getting into accidents. Your mind constantly worrying, impaired judgment, or nightmares, making hasty decisions. Behaviors that are like a pattern, they keep happening over and over. Habits that are not helping you, but they're in a way you feel like they're calming you down. People that smoke more, you're feeling restless, insomnia, drinking more, lack of sex drive or have an overactive sex drive, right? Looking to fulfill something or fill up that void, or even emotions, loss of confidence, irritable, depression, anxiety. A lot of these are symptoms and more than often can be traced back to a traumatic situation that is stored in the body. And this is how the body and the mind are talking to you. They're letting you know, hey, there's a problem in this being. I need you to recognize it. So I work with a lot of therapists as well as other energy practitioners. And I'm constantly saying, well, let's focus on healing the healer. So whether you identify yourself as a healer, as a therapist, as a practitioner, if you're in service, if you love to help others, you're a healer. And a healer is someone that just goes above and beyond to be of service, to share our love with someone else so that they can rise up in whatever way that looks like. But one of the first things in doing trauma work is doing your own trauma work, making sure that you know your own triggers. And so what I mean by that is you know what can cause situations or those headaches, or if you feel fatigued or depressed or anything like that, where you can ask yourself or start to figure out, hey, when did that headache start? What was happening in my life or in that moment when the headache started? What was I thinking? Who was I around? It's coming from a curious place. It's also, and again, I identified a lot here with clients, but it's having it, and this could be clients, this could be with loved ones, this could be with friends. Anyone that you give energy to, being very mindful, making sure that you're taking care of yourself. And taking care of yourself isn't just going for a massage or going to a spa day, but again, it's recognizing when you're hungry, when you're tired, right? These are basic necessities, and I can't tell you how many people ignore those. I know when I'm starting to get hungry because one, my stomach starts making little noises, but then I also notice that I'm starting to get more irritable. So then I start asking myself, okay, Patty, when was the last time you ate? Or what's going on? Or what can you do right now? And again, it's asking myself how to take care. Knowing your limits with clients, with loved ones, and with your friends. If you notice that you're saying yes more than you're saying no, that could be related again to a trauma response called fawn or appeasement or people pleasing. Another is grounding and mindfulness, and I'm going to share with you a few examples of what that looks like. Examples could be breath work, sound healing, somatic practices, which is doing body work, movement, yoga, dancing, temper tantrums, those count, I have those, being in nature, and inner and outer resourcing. So these are different techniques that can help you identify like mindfulness, being aware of your surroundings, and then asking for help as well. For those of you who are professionals and you want to learn Reiki to be able to share it with others, with your clients, integrate it into your professional life, what's most important is that when you're coming from a trauma-aware perspective, is that you continue to educate yourself on trauma. New things are constantly evolving, more understanding and information. Of course, you want to make sure that you're enhancing your confidence. And most importantly, if you don't know, ask or refer out. When you refer out, it doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It's that you're out of your expertise. There's a lot of times that I refer out, and I'll give you some examples as we move forward of when that could happen. And then I offer some examples of how you can do your inner work. There's therapy, coaching in the right way. There's hypnosis, EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, energy psychology, Reiki, meditation, journaling, right? There's a lot of different things. My encouragement always is when you are doing trauma work, your own work, make sure that you seek help, because a lot of things get uncovered, and if you stay dysregulated, it could cause a lot of those stress symptoms that we saw earlier. So why include Reiki in trauma care? Well, one, the beautiful thing about Reiki is that it can be applied in person and virtually. Though sometimes when I have an example, clients that are virtual and they're, let's say, going through anxiety because they're talking about something, and I can see them getting very upset, I'll pause them and I'll educate them. They'll already know about Reiki. And I say, let's take a moment right here. Let's connect. May I send you Reiki? Yes, perfect. And I send them Reiki as they are starting to calm down. And of course, we're resourcing and practicing these grounding techniques to help them stay present, which means when you stay present, you're staying in your body. You always want to stay in your body. It can be used for self-care. In my Reiki 1 class, that is actually the main focus that I have, is self-care. Every Reiki teacher is different, but I always say that if we don't start with taking care of ourselves and doing our own work, then we're not really showing up in the best way for other people. Because when we can understand our own triggers, then we get to explain that or come from a more compassionate place when we work with others. And what's cool with Reiki is that you can use this with any kind of being. And when I say being, it's people, pets, plants, anything like that. So anything that has life can receive Reiki. Although I would even extend that because I've given Reiki to my car whenever I've gotten stranded. But I think it was more like I was giving it to my car, but I was really giving it to myself so I don't freak out, and that I bring in AAA to come in quicker. It also promotes relaxation. It supports that nervous system regulation that I mentioned earlier. It's going to calm that hyperarousal. So for example, when I first started this webinar and we were getting connected and the presentation disappeared, in my mind, I was already feeling myself going into that fight response of getting really nervous. What do I do? My mind was starting to get foggy, but then I was just channeling or receiving that Reiki, and Carolina also was sending me Reiki, and I know Katia was sending me Reiki, and it's just sending that energy to be like, it's okay. And I was able to bounce back and bring it back into place without feeling as nervous if I wouldn't have applied Reiki. Reiki also helps connect clients or reconnect clients to their bodies in a safe way. Because a lot of times a trauma victim feels very unsafe in their body. So we want to help them remove that fear so that they can rely more on their body to identify that, or let them know when danger is around, or their intuition. And it also strengthens your resilience as well as the resilience of anybody that you're working with, along with that emotional regulation. Like I mentioned, instead of like, oh my God, this is going to be like crazy. Like, wait, no, let's bring it down. And the great thing about Reiki is it can be applied anytime, anywhere. So the 6 principles of trauma-informed care. Again, looking at this as a whole. And these are things that you can bring into your daily life. So it's not just about Reiki. These are things you can already start incorporating so that you're coming from that what happened to you instead of what's wrong with you perspective. So the first thing is safety, creating an environment where people or clients can feel safe or secure. And what I mean by that is a lot of it is being mindful of what you have like on your walls or in the environment around you. It's also what you're saying, how you're dressed, your body language. All of these things is coming from a place of awareness. Being trustworthy. It is so important that you establish clear boundaries and stay consistent, because a trauma victim feels very fearful because their boundaries were not supported. And so we want to ensure that we're communicating. So like what I did earlier when we did the Usui principles, I invited you. I gave you options. That's helping to create that sense of safety. Because if I would have just said, close your eyes, and you're a trauma victim, that could be the scariest thing for you, because then you can't see what's around you, your senses get dulled. So I give you a choice. And when you have a choice, you feel more empowered. Also, having collaboration, empowering clients to be, or people around you to be, active participants. So like, for example, when my sister was going through her cancer, and even my mom, I would constantly just ask them, what would be helpful for you right now? What do you need? How can I support you? And letting them tell me instead of me assuming that I know what's better for them. Empowerment. You want to encourage people to build their confidence, which then goes into resilience. So if they are going through, let's say, and we do this a lot of times with, let's say, a child falls. And we, instead of like rushing to the child, like, oh my God, are you okay? Which can create trauma. We can go to the child and be like, oh, you fell. Any boo-boos? Let me check. Oh, you're okay. Come on, let's go maybe get some ice cream, or let's just distract, or something like that. Now the kid stands up and they're like, yeah, that was a fall. It's okay, right? They feel stronger. They know that if they fall, they can get back up and it won't be a big deal. So that's how we help calm that. That could have been a trauma, but then we shifted it by helping them to self-regulate or calm down. And then cultural sensitivity, respecting diverse identities and experiences. Everybody comes from a different place, whether you come from the state of Florida, which is me, or Miami, which is a very diverse city, or a different country, or a different culture, or a different language. Whatever that is, it's just honoring where that person is. And again, being curious, what happened in your life that is causing any stress? So I'm going to give a couple of examples of how a trauma-aware informed approach applies to Reiki. So I'll start with Christine, that's not her real name, but Christine was one of my first energy clients, and she came to me very upset because she was having a lot of like womb issues. I keep thinking in chakras, but like just the intestine, like lower feminine area, and the doctors couldn't find anything wrong with her. So she was just very upset and disappointed, didn't know what to do. And it was causing her to have so much social anxiety. So coming from the trauma informed or aware perspective, first thing I did was I helped to create safety. I invited her to have a seat. I explained that we would start a conversation, and anytime that she felt upset or wasn't able to continue, just to let me know. Or I might pause her if I felt that she was going into, right? So I explained things to her so that she felt safe, and I sat in a way that was in front of her, yes, so she could see my body language. And as she told me her story, I just kind of was like, wow, that sounds rough, or man, that's difficult. Oh, that must have been really angry. So I wasn't so much encouraging her story, but I was like, empowering or being empathetic with her, saying like, wow, that sounds, whatever that feeling was for her. What it turns out, though, after a few sessions of working with her and doing the energy work, what we are able to find is the source of her pain actually came from an experience that she had when she was 5 years old. And that experience was that she was made to go with her parents to like family gatherings or group activities, and she didn't want to stay in the group activities because they were boring. So then she started to exhibit pain in her belly, like a lower part of her belly. And so her mind started to connect, oh, when I feel uncomfortable, I'll create a pain. And so once we are able to energetically connect to that past memory, then we are able to bring that energy or that pain up. And I invited her, are you ready to let this go? She said yes. With Reiki, we let it go. And since then, she is now playing guitar in front of tons of people. She sings. Her social anxiety has disappeared. I saw her for, I would say, a total of a month and a half with weekly sessions, and she was able to clear that pretty quickly because it was one situation. Now, somebody who has chronic child abuse or other situations, traumatic events, it may take longer or not. It really all just depends on the person and how entrenched they are with that trauma. David, he was a 22-year-old client, first time receiving Reiki. And as he was in his meditative state, in the Reiki state, he ended up going into a past life. Whether you believe in past lives, that's okay. What that experience taught me was, yes, and I experienced him having a past life because he saw himself in a war, in a civil war, because this was when I was living in Nicaragua. He saw himself as a young man, which it wasn't him at the time, in the civil war, fighting in the trenches. And as he was experiencing that, I was using Reiki to help move that energy, clear the past, from that past life, from this current life, and he was able to sleep better. He wasn't even aware of it, but he was able to recover really, really well, and he wasn't having any more nightmares. And for myself, I had a trauma here while living in Miami where I was held at gunpoint, behind me, like in my back. And so part of my trauma response is anytime somebody comes behind me, I would often jump and yell and get ready to fight. But what I did is I started working with other Reiki practitioners and energy healers, and they helped me to reduce and release that trauma. And they were actually able to see that it was imprinted in my back, and we were able to remove it. Now, the majority of it is gone. I am still sensitive to it at times, but I'm much less likely to jump out of my skin. So again, it may still be a reflection, maybe of that trauma response, or just because I've lived with it for so long that my body's just much more sensitive to when somebody comes from behind me. So again, these are some examples of how those trauma-informed principles can be applied into these situations. So again, it can work in different ways. So I talked a lot about like that traumatic experience. And so our first response whenever we go into some like a shock is going to be fight or flight. That's the first thing. That's when we're like hyper arousal. Then when we can bring in different techniques such as Reiki, mindfulness, a peer, a friend, a loved one, healing touch, whatever that is, deep breaths, tapping, essential oils, our minds are going to shift into a parasympathetic response. This can happen within seconds, but we have to activate it quickly. So again, that's why I mentioned the more tools you have, the better it is, the quicker that response shifts. So quickly, the grounding tools that you can use with Reiki, sound healing, meditation, dancing, mindfulness, and being out in nature. So a lot of people think Reiki is woo-woo, but I want to share with you that it is not. It is actually becoming an evidence-based practice. If you look on pubmed.gov, you're going to find over 3,700 peer-reviewed studies that show the efficacy of Reiki. The studies have proven that Reiki is effective in decreasing levels of pain, depression, and anxiety. There's also the Center for Reiki Research that conducted a study at Harvard University in 2020, and it showed the symptoms of physical and mental health struggles were actually shifting because of Reiki being applied either in one session or multiple sessions. So again, when you apply trauma-aware Reiki, you're going to always want to explain your process. And this could be just even doing anything that you do from a trauma-aware perspective. You always want to ask permission before you initiate any kind of protocol. With Reiki, you'll rely more on your intuition and faith to receive support and guidance. And you want to prioritize that client consent, making sure that they say yes, 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 so they feel more empowered. And again, with Reiki, you can apply it anytime, anywhere. So now I've done a lot of talking. You may have a lot of questions, which we'll get to. But I want to go ahead and share with you Reiki. So what you may experience is energy moving through your body. You may experience a sense of calm and ease. You may experience feeling tired, or you may experience even pain, and then it'll shift and it'll go away. You might notice colors or images. Whatever happens, it's totally normal. So I invite you to just get comfortable wherever you are. Again, you're welcome to lower your gaze, close your eyes, or find something in front of you to focus on. You don't have to believe in Reiki to receive it. You'll know. It'll come. Let's focus in on your breath. And I invite any Reiki practitioners that are here to set your intention that all that are here to receive Reiki. And so I will ask for everyone's permission. And again, all you have to do is in your mind, just say yes. Are you open to receiving Reiki? And if you say yes, then you'll receive it. If you say no, then the Reiki won't come in. And that's fine too. So feel your breath, bringing it in, breathing it out. Feeling an energy. I'm inviting the energy to come. And I'm going to focus in on your heart. You might notice some energy around your heart, or you might just notice some tension in your shoulders, and you might notice it relax. Whatever comes up, just notice it. Be curious and let it go. You might notice your thoughts, which is normal. Just again, be curious and allow them to move. And again, breathing in. And with an exhalation, a deep sigh. And just giving thanks to yourself for being here. For giving yourself this time. Giving yourself this opportunity to learn. And just feeling that gentle tranquility move through. Another deep breath in. Holding it. And a slow sigh out. Ready or not, go ahead and gently move your fingers and your toes. Gently opening your eyes as you feel ready. Or a lot of people say, but no, I'm not ready. You can have your eyes closed if you want. So go ahead, if you have your eyes open, just go ahead and check in by typing in the chat your experience, what that was like. I know it was short, but because we were in a group setting, even if you watch the recording, you're going to still receive the Reiki. So quickly, I just want to share, is learning Reiki right for you? On February 8th, which is about a week from now, or a week from Saturday, I'm teaching the trauma-aware Usui Reiki 1 certification class. And I'll let you know that there are very few, if any, people teaching Reiki from this perspective. It's going to be available in person in Miami or virtual via Zoom. It's from 12 p.m. to 6:30. But what you're going to learn in this class is how trauma shows up as stress in your body. So we're going to dive deeper than what we did today. You're going to also learn about the history of Usui Reiki, the principles, we're going to be diving into those as well, and the energy bodies, which I realize there's a little typo, the energy bodies, or AKA the chakras, our energy centers. You're going to also be able to learn how to apply self-Reiki and over 25 different ways that you can apply Reiki in any way into your life. What you're going to walk away with from that class is you're going to receive the Reiki attunement, which is a sacred initiation from teacher to student of receiving the Reiki energy and activating what's called your palm chakras. So you're going to always be able to, after the class, to say Reiki on, and the Reiki turns on, and then you can go and give love, which is what Reiki is, in a safe way to yourself and others. You're going to be invited to a Reiki What's Up group that I created, where Reiki practitioners of all experiences just ask questions. We share experiences, insights, and resources. You're going to receive a manual and a certificate. And for those that are licensed professionals, you're going to receive 6 CEUs. And so we'll have that conversation. So like I said, the bonus is that you're going to receive the Usui Reiki principles, ebook, and meditation. By registering, you can secure your spot with only $90 deposit. The class is $250, but we can do a payment plan, but that option ends tomorrow night. Or you can pay in full and you'll receive a 20-minute complimentary video call with me after the Reiki 1 class. Pretty yummy bonuses. So we'll wrap up with questions and answers. And this is my contact information, which, like I said, I will share with all of you at the end. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this share and